Horror fans, Fangoria Fright Fest presents 8 killer flicks. Full of thrills and chills, blood and guts, murder and mayhem. Fangoria Fright Fest.
It's an interesting time in the world. These are real interesting times for us. It's been fun to watch it happen ever since September 11th. The world has really changed. It's an enormously dangerous place now.
He has been described as the master of terror, able to weave violence, thrills, and sexual tensions with great skill and brilliance. Considered a triple threat with his ability to write, direct, and score his own films. This is John Carpenter. In his words, told to Fangoria's Tony Timpone, this is his Screamography.
I was 4 or 5 years old when I saw It Came from Outer Space. And it was in 3D. It was its first release. And I was basically so young then, I was not quite sure what was going on. But we had these cheesy glasses that you wore, and the opening of that movie has this spaceship or meteor coming down, and there's a shot where it comes right into the camera and blows up. Well, it scared the shit out of me, man. I was terrified. So I jumped up and actually literally ran from the seat. But when I got to the back of the theater, I realized, wow, that's pretty cool. What's this all about? So I went back and sat down. I was understanding what I was seeing on the screen. It was unclear. What was this? I didn't understand the projection idea. I didn't understand this was made. It was just viscerally hit me. Probably did more damage to me than anything else, but that got me really excited about movies.
From that moment, Carpenter was hooked.
I started making movies when I was 8. My father gave me an 8mm movie camera. I started shooting my friends in various films, animating clay monsters, and basically what every film geek did back when I grew up. I was in the 50s. I think maybe after I saw Forbidden Planet in 1956, I decided, you know, I have to do this because I invested so much of myself in the movies. For a variety of reasons, I found escape in the movie theater, watching films, from troubles that I had as a kid.
Carpenter's family landed in Bowling Green, Kentucky. Not exactly the place to become a serious filmmaker.
I was going to the university in my small town. My dad's a teacher. There wasn't anything there. There wasn't any future for me, and I decided, well, now's the time. I'm either going to try this or not. So I came to California in '68 and enrolled in USC. And that was the best experience I had. That was the ultimate experience in teaching me how to make films. I learned everything. I learned the technique. I learned the machinery. I had to do everything from operate a camera to project, to do the sound and processing, animation, everything we learned. And then from there, I just went on.
Carpenter began his career as many filmmakers do, with the low-budget student film.
I started doing a thesis film at SC, Dark Star, and began working with Dan O'Bannon, who was a fellow student there and a friend. And film shoots in those days were, we got to shoot a sequence, come back and edit it, and then later shoot another one and another one and another one. So the process 45 minutes took about a year. And then we went to try to make it into a feature. We got some money from a Canadian investor. It wasn't quite enough, but we went out and shot more footage, and it came up to 90 minutes, 80 minutes, whatever it was. Went looking for a distributor, and lo and behold, we met Jack H. Harris. Jack Harris was famous for making The Blob, producing The Blob. And he produced other films. And he had a distribution company, mainly softcore porn. He released Landis's movie,
Schlock.
Schlock. And Landis claims that he suggested that Harris pick up Dark Star. I don't remember it that way, but that's okay. Landis claims a lot of things. So Harris had us go back and reshoot stuff and rework it. So we finally finished 4 years later.
Wow.
And it got released. It got released on my birthday in 1975, January 16th. And did nothing, did zero, because it was a, blown up to 35 millimeter. It was a 16 millimeter film. It was amateur acting. It was college, students. But it was the beginning. It got me an agent. It got shown at FilmX. That was the film festival at the time. And so it did really well for me.
Though the film had virtually no box office success, it shaped his approach into the movie business.
Dark Star led to nothing, really. And that I had a little feature film out, it didn't mean anything to anyone. So I realized I had to write my way into the movie business. My father said, you need to not depend on us anymore. You need to take things in your own hands and support yourself, because my parents had supported me through this period. So I began writing screenplays, and I started selling some, or getting options to rewrite them, and I started making a pretty good living. Amazing. One of the ideas I sold was called The Eyes of Laura Mars, sold to John Peters in Columbia. And that eventually got made, and so I actually started to make a living. A guy can make a great living writing scripts that never get made. I gotta tell you, they pay you a lot of money. And I got this system down at the time where I would, once I got the job, I would do a quick outline of what the movie was, and I would do nothing for about 2 months, just have a good time, because it gave you around 3 months to finish. And then the last 2 weeks, I'd take that outline and just burn through and turn it into a screenplay. And they might say, oh, this is interesting, but we want you to do more work on it, and we'll pay you for that. Oh, great, thank you. So I do the same thing again, take their notes, and then 2 weeks before I had to hand it in, burn through it. So it's not a bad life for a writer in those days. This is the 70s.
During that time, you wrote a movie for John Wayne.
That's right, Blood River, yeah.
Did you get to meet the Duke?
I did.
What was that experience like?
That was one of the best experiences of my life, because I'd been a big fan of John Wayne. He'd be pretty tough on you. He was pretty tough. I was just a young punk with long hair, so he was very, right-wing guy. He kind of withering glaze, but I got to meet him, shake his hand one day. But I worked with his son, Michael, on the screenplay. Did a lot of work on it, and it was good. Never got to be, Wayne died and things happened, but
right. You mentioned The Eyes of Laura Mars. At one point, Barbra Streisand was going to star in that, and you met with her, and your ex-wife Adrienne Barbeau tells a story in her new autobiography that Barbra Streisand was hitting on you during the meetings. Is there any truth to that?
No, not true.
Okay.
Now, she was in love with John Peters. That was the beginning of their relationship, and he went with her into the movie business.
Following Dark Star, Carpenter wrote and directed the critically acclaimed Assault on Precinct 13. But the film contained a scene where a little girl was murdered. This caused the Motion Picture Association to take action.
I have to be frank with you about Assault on Precinct 13. I didn't know it was going to be that strong. And I suppose it's because I just lived in the movies. It wasn't strong to me. But it was truly, we got an X rating for it. And we had to cut some frames out of it, supposedly. It didn't. We just cut them out of a print and showed it to the MPAA, and they gave us an R, and then it was released with the scene intact. I didn't realize how strong it is. Now that I'm older, a little smarter, I realize, oh man, that's rough. That's really rough. But yeah, it was strong. strong stuff. The movie again was released in this country and didn't do too much. It was a small distributor, Irwin Yablans, who I went on to work with on Halloween. But oddly enough, in England, we showed it at the British Film Institute. They had a film festival there. And it got a lot of attention. And so I think my career began, basically, people began to pay attention to me from that film in Europe, which has kind of always been the case.
Carpenter's next film would be his finest hour, his modern-day masterpiece. But it just started out as any other ordinary movie deal.
Irwin Yablans came to me, and he had an investor, Mustafa Akkad, who was putting up money for low-budget American films. 250,000, well, 200,000, I believe it was. I'm maybe wrong about that now. He said, I want to do a low-budget film about babysitter murders, because kids can relate to babysitting, and we want some killer to stalk, these teenage girls. I did not have a job, so I said, yes, of course I will, but what I want to do is write the script. I want creative control. I want a final cut, and I want my name above the title. So I agreed, and I met with Mustafa Akkad, who was putting up the money, and it was actually a great meeting. He had gone to UCLA Film School and had directed some films. And he said, well, why should I trust you to make this? And I said, well, that's just the answer right there. You have to trust me. You have to trust the director, because there's no guarantee. And he apparently liked my answer. So lo and behold, here we go. And Irwin came up with the idea. I have to give him credit for it. He came up with the idea of setting it on Halloween night and calling it Halloween. As he realized, well, no, there hadn't been a low-budget film, a horror movie called Halloween, which was a good idea. And his suggestion was also Donald Pleasance, which was a great idea.
These great ideas made for horror movie history and made moviegoers fear the mysterious Michael Myers.
If you keep him in the shadows and you light him with blue light, and he looks scarier than he actually is. It looks pretty ridiculous in person. I don't know. I have no idea. None of us thought it would catch on like it did. What I kind of kept to a minimum was any kind of real specific violence. It was mostly off screen. The shape, or the Michael Myers, the character, would come in and out of frame. He would be either in foreground or background. And that's just from watching a lot of movies in film school. I saw one called The Innocents. It was a remake in the 60s, I believe it was, where the ghosts were across the lake and they were standing there. There's something really eerie about that long shot. It was just very powerful, this motionless figure, far enough away that you couldn't really read any detail in it. So I kind of did that kind of idea, and made him essentially unkillable. I hadn't seen that since Westworld.
Carpenter met his first wife, actress Adrienne Barbeau, on his next project, The Fog.
It was just awkward because she was my wife, and I wasn't, and in those days, in the early days, I wasn't sure about handling actors. They always terrified me on set. I wasn't quite sure how to direct. I got a little bit more secure later, and with experience. But then I wasn't sure where it began or ended, where the husband and wife ended, and the director actress. I wasn't clear about that. She did a great job for me. She's a terrifically underrated actress. Really, really good. I was very happy for her.
Carpenter kept scoring at the box office. His next venture had a $6 million budget. 1981's Escape from New York.
Escape from New York was probably the character was inspired by Clint Eastwood and a Dirty Harry type thing. And the idea of New York as a prison, I really don't know where they came from, other than there was this one book by Harry Harrison called Planet of the Damned, I believe it was. I could be wrong, it may be another one, but it's about this guy they hire to go to the most, the meanest, the most dangerous planet in the universe, and only he's the toughest guy can go in there. I thought it was a great idea. Let me do that. Let's take the toughest guy we know and send him into this New York prison. And we shot that for not much money in St. Louis, and went around looking for a place to shoot it with some East Coast architecture, stuff we could fake. And St. Louis allowed us to shut down, parts of the city and set fires and turn off all the street lights. They were great because they'd had a big fire in St. Louis in the 70s. It had gutted a lot of the central city, and economic conditions were really, really bad there. So we lucked out. We had a great look. I got to say too, a lot of the responsibility and the success of the Halloween and the Fog and Escape and The Thing are due to Dean Cundy, the cinematographer. He's really brilliant. I know later in his career, he wanted to direct. He's always wanted to direct. So everybody wants to direct. You want to direct. But he started directing, but he was just a great cinematographer.
The visual effects were a big part of the film, and an up-and-coming talent would soon emerge as a star.
Everybody told me this was one guy to watch. We went down to Roger Corman's facility, and they would do things on the cheap, And everybody was touting this guy. This was the next genius. They were showing me footage that he had done really inexpensively. It was some matting process, whether it was front screen or what it was, I don't remember now, but I was watching it. And he was on the set one day painting a glass painting for me, for shooting a miniature. He used to shoot through glass, and he was painting the skyline of New York. Everybody said, "Oh, there's Jim Cameron down there." Oh. And so I went down, and he's a very nice guy. And he was very, very talented.
Escape from New York taught Carpenter a few things, like don't show your friends before the film is released.
They were the ones that said, this is pretty good, but it takes too long to get into the prison. It takes too long to get going. And I had this whole opening sequence. We just ditched it, and it played much better. Halloween 2, well, oddly enough, even in Halloween, we'd finished the movie and it was out, and this was a couple of years later. Irwin Yablans and Mustafa had sold Halloween to NBC, but it was too short. And they said, "Well, you have to shoot some more footage." Wow. So I went back and shot this awful, awful stuff. Yeah, it was awful. Donald Pleasance talking to some psychiatrists. This real dull and boring scene. The three girls got back together again with wigs. And actually, that wasn't a bad little scene, but I just shot this bullshit to try to pad it out to 90 minutes or whatever it was, 88 minutes. I can't remember now. I did not improve it. It was really terrible. Plus, the time 2 years later, I am so far away from the style that I'd brought to the original one. I had to try to remember what the hell was I doing back then. I moved on to something else. Halloween 2, I looked at his final cut and I realized, this is not scary enough. And it may have been problems in the script. It may have been the way it was written. So we went out and shot some additional stuff. Again, it didn't necessarily make it any better. It just made it maybe a hair scarier, a touch scarier, sorry.
Right.
After Carpenter escaped from New York, his next project was The Thing. The film was set in Antarctica and starred an amazing ensemble cast. John thought he might need a new approach on how to get the best from his actors.
I actually had to call for help. I had to talk to, I can't remember who it was now, came in and met with me, an actor who sat down and talked about ensemble acting and you know, how do you get the best out of people, how do you work with them, and he gave me a lot of suggestions. I started to use them, a lot of rehearsing, a lot of rehearsal period, and let them work out a lot of questions about their characters. But essentially, everybody has to come to the table with a character ready to go, which is, you know, that's professional acting. So that was the one that was challenging. I had all 12 actors in one scene. And, you know, the questions start, but it actually turned out fine.
Was there any moment while you were shooting where he says, "Oh boy, this is too much"?
Every day. It was a big challenge all the way around. All of it was. But in the end, it was one of the darkest movies I've made, which I think affected the way people saw it. You know, nowadays, I really appreciate it now because most Hollywood films it's always happy endings. And that's a movie about the end of the world.
Casting is everything to Carpenter. He has used many so-called non-actors to co-star in several of his films.
Everybody that I worked with came ready to work. Marlon Brando said the oldest profession in the world really is acting, because everybody acts one way or the other, act in our daily lives. I don't think I believe him exactly, but no, I never had a problem. Everybody comes with different set of needs. My job is to help them get the best performance they can get. Befriend them or get tough with them or whatever the role requires.
When a big studio like Universal offered Carpenter the chance to remake his classic, he couldn't refuse.
It was offered to me by Universal. It would be my first big studio film. I was a little disappointed that it wasn't something else. I didn't really want to remake the thing originally. But, you know, look, when someone comes along and offers you a movie and a paycheck, you do it. I did it. And I lucked out with Rob Bottin. He was the one who solved the problem for me of what is the thing and what does it look like. He came in with an idea that can look like anything and should keep changing its look. It shouldn't look like one thing. It's not a man in a suit. It's not James Arness from the original. It's not a werewolf. It looks like all this crazy, nightmarish stuff. And when we shot the film, and it was a very difficult movie to make in every aspect, shooting in Alaska, on the ice fields, on a glacier, in the interiors, all the acting and all that part of it, but the special effects were very hard to pull off. And a lot of people say, well, they were too ferocious. And that's when I started hearing the old cliche about, well, you've got to keep all the monster in the shadows. You can't ever see it. That's the artistic way of doing it. I think that came from a movie called The Bad and the Beautiful. It was made in the 40s, where Kirk Douglas and Barry Sullivan were looking at these kind of terrible cat suits that they're supposed to be wearing. They don't look good, so they decide to hide it with shadows. Well, okay, I buy that, but if you have a monster that you think is good and you bring it out into the light, if you can make people get scared at that thing, because all it is a pile of rubber, it's nothing, then you've really done something. That's what we tried to do. We put it under lights. And I got to say, Rob did a great job for us.
Though he sat in the director's chair, Carpenter did not write the remake.
I don't remember how that worked, but the idea was I would not write it. And we found Bill Lancaster. It was great. Did a great job for me. I just don't remember now.
Are you happy that the thing has been so critically rediscovered in recent years. It seems that that's one movie where its reputation just continues to grow. It wasn't appreciated by audiences when it first came out, but
No, it was hated.
I know, but yes, 9 out of 10.
And it
or
was
10 out
hated
of
by
10.
the fans,
Yeah.
which I never quite understood. Hated by the fans. I remember this one magazine, I can't remember what it was, it came out and said, "Is this the most hated horror film of all time?" Boy, the vehemence was unbelievable.
What do you think that is?
I have no clue.
What was the nerve?
I guess
kind of nerve.
I don't know. I mean, I raped a nun, I guess. The first movie was the icon. It was an icon.
Mm-hmm.
This is one of the great horror films of all. How dare he?
But the fact that films are so different, that you think that would have allayed those kind of prejudices, you know?
I maintain that was the turning point in my career. If that movie had been a big success, my career would have gone a different direction.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't, and it went the direction it went in. If I were to make that movie the following year, it would have been different. You know, sure, I love down endings. I would still make a movie that is as bleak as that. Mm-hmm. Sure, why not?
Carpenter's next thing was to direct Stephen King's novel, Christine.
What attracted you to filming Stephen King's Christine?
I needed a job. And period. That was it. I lost a movie after the thing at Universal. I was going to do Firestarter, and they wanted to cut it down to like a $5 million film, and thanks. So I moved on, and along comes Christine. And I wasn't a giant fan of the book, but it's a killer car, haunted car movie. And then I got Bill Phillips to write a screenplay, and we made a deal and we shot it. And, you know, it holds up pretty well today. I like it now looking back on it. At the time I thought, my lack of passion about the material, I think, is evident. Well, I thought so at the time. Now I look at it and oh, that's pretty good. Damn.
And his idea to add another scene was also pretty good.
We'd finished the movie and realized it needed a little sparkle in there, so I had to come up with an idea. It's the simplest idea of all in the entire world. And Roy Arbogast, our special effects guy, came up with it. Basically, he rigged a car, took all the insides out, just the frame and this beautiful exterior, and got a big winch and hooked up parts of it and pulled it in from inside. We shot it in reverse, so it just comes up like that, and it works fine. Works great.
But King may not have been thrilled with the final cut.
Stephen King was odd in those days. Those are back in the drug days. He loved our movie at first, loved it, and then began to turn on it. It was really odd. He was a strange character, but now he rehabbed himself and he's a happy man.
Right after Christine, Carpenter jumped at the chance to step out of the horror realm.
The head of Columbia at the time was Guy McElwain. He had taken over from Frank Price, and he always thought I should go into more mainstream movies. And this was a chance to kind of do a love story, and I wasn't going to get one. You know, my rep was in horror, and so I got to do it, and I got to work with Jeff Bridges, and it was a great experience.
And it was the
terrific.
flip side of the thing.
It was all nice. Happy. No, it was good. It was a girl movie.
What kind of direction did you give Jeff Bridges on the movie?
Jeff is just a brilliant, he's a brilliant actor, first of all. You don't have to tell him too much. We, Karen Allen and Jeff and Charlie Martin Smith and I, we rehearsed for a couple weeks before the movie. So we had a lot of the problems ironed out. Jeff and Karen did a lot of improv about their characters. And Jeff had a notebook, and it had this eagle on the front of it. And I asked him, what is that? He said, that's my character. He plays it like a bird. If you look at real closely about how he looks and the way he reacts to things, he's playing a bird. And he's an enormously creative actor. I really love Jeff. Is fabulous.
How did you react when he got the Academy Award
I was
nomination?
delighted.
1986's Big Trouble in Little China reunited Carpenter with another one of his favorite actors, Kurt Russell.
There are certain actors that you really don't have to direct. That Kurt was raised in the Disney system, where you knew all your lines, you showed up and you hit all your marks, you did everything technically perfect. See, in those days, the script supervisor would cut the take if you said one word wrong. So he would have every single word, and he would figure out ahead of time, in a lot of cases, what he was going to do with the character and how he was going to play it. Kurt, like Jeff, like Sam Neill, like a lot of guys that I've worked with, they're just consummate actors. They know how to play a scene. They know the heart of the scene. They know what they need to do to make it work, when to lay back. Working with Kurt is just a dream. So we talked about it, and I said, you got to come up with some character in this. You know, how are you going to play this? And so he chose to play John Wayne. A dumb John Wayne.
The movie kind of precipitated the whole Asian craze. In a lot of ways, it was ahead of its time. Do you think if it had come out today, or 5 years ago, it would probably been more successful?
I have no idea. But it was a little bit ahead of its time, in the sense that we did a lot of flying around. There was a mid-air battle scene, and we did it without, we had to use trampolines. We didn't use the wires a whole lot. Everybody's on a wire now.
Right.
They're going to put you on a wire soon.
Yeah.
Though Carpenter's biggest film was the success of Halloween, he decided not to repeat his performance. But that didn't stop others from trying to cash in on the franchise.
My lawyer said, look, you can't deny somebody the right to exploit a product. So rather than stop them, we never got to a suit. I joined them. Said, you guys go, bless you, God be with you. Just give me a check every time you make a film and I will be happy. And I don't want anything to do with it. They used my music, and they made the movie, and it's still, rumbling along.
In 1992, Carpenter directed Memoirs of an Invisible Man, starring Chevy Chase, an ambitious film for both director and star.
I'll give everybody their due now. It was a tough project. Chevy wanted to move out of comedy. He wanted to do serious work. He wanted to be a leading man. Studio wanted him to stay in comedy, to do slapstick. Well, you have these two, I was in the middle of these two forces. So I thought, well, we can do a comedy, but we can also make it more serious. It just didn't work out for the audiences.
Finishing up a commitment Carpenter had with Universal, he was set to direct the remake, The Village of the Damned.
And they had a script that Wes Craven was actually developing.
Oh.
But we didn't have, again, much money. And the one thing about that movie I really like is I really like Christopher Reeve's performance. I thought he did a great job. That was his last film before the accident. Yeah. And he did a good job for me. Real good job.
It was, again, it must have been daunting taking on a classic. Right?
The original movie is not a classic. If you see that thing again, it's pretty silly. I mean, at the time, it was really kind of startling, but the marriage between Barbara Shelley and George Sanders is really ridiculous. And she never seems to be in labor. I mean, it's kind of an effortless thing, and she never seems to be raising the kid. I mean, it's just a bizarre film. It's well thought of. I kind of liked it when I was a kid in 1960. But.
Right.
In 1998, Carpenter went back to what had been tried and true: vampires.
There were a lot of things about vampires. They had a slightly different vibe to them. They weren't gothic. You drag them out in the sunlight, and the sun would, they would explode. There was all sorts of little touches that I could do. I hadn't done a vampire film. Got to work with James Woods, and I got to kind of shoot it as a Western in the American Southwest. That was fun to do.
Right.
But James Woods might have been more difficult than killing a vampire.
He's a very challenging person. I got to be real close friends with him. And he's great. He loves to ad-lib. So you have to make a deal with him about that. You can let him go, but you have to get him to say the lines. But a lot of stuff he does is fabulous. You just got to let it go. Jimmy's great.
Didn't he ad-lib that whole business about where he's talking about the vampires, how they're not like the Anne Rice vampires and all that
That's
stuff?
That's right. He did the lines. It's a scene in a truck. So we're always driving along. There's a bunch of us with headphones on, and they're shooting, and he's giving the lines from the script. And all of a sudden, we've done several takes. That's good. And he starts doing his ad-libs, and they're fabulous. They're just fabulous.
Oh boy. Some of his co-stars have said that he tortures them.
Yeah, he can be rough on you. He can be rough on you. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying it wasn't a bumpy ride occasionally. Mm-hmm.
But, it's all in the interest of making a better movie, though. Right.
Sometimes big personalities come along with stuff, and it's part of their creativity, and that's good.
It's been 5 years since the last Carpenter feature film. His dark side has been won over by the small screen.
I've enjoyed the TV projects. The Masters of Horror is fun to do. It's short. It's a 10-day shoot. It's an interesting time in the world. These are real interesting times for us. It's been fun to watch it happen ever since September 11th. The world has really changed. It's an enormously dangerous place now. And like I say, there are a couple of times in my career when I felt like I don't want to work anymore. And that after Ghosts of Mars, I came to that point when I'm not going to work for a while. I lost my mom. My mom died during this particular time. All sorts of things came up. So it's been a good time to hang back.
But hanging back for Carpenter has never been staying quiet about his political views.
I honestly, thank God, I don't have to figure out how to make things better. I don't know how to do it. Things are so screwed up. But we'll see. I have a terrible, terrible feeling that we are America in decline. But I'm a long-term optimist. I have a short-term pessimism that hovers around me. Things are not going to work out in the short term, but in the long term, I'm optimistic. I have an ultimate concern for mankind. I think we'll make it. Maybe. Maybe.
Carpenter is constantly evolving, sharing his ideals, his creativity, to reach out to his audience with heart-stopping tension. Visions of evil so dark, so terrifying, and so disturbing that it could only come from a true master of horror.
The fabulous thing for all of us in horror, although probably we won't admit it, is that it's everybody is afraid of the exact same things. All of us in this room, everybody who's watching and listening, we're all afraid of the same things. We're born afraid. We're suddenly removed symbiotically. We've been with our mother when we were fetuses. We're removed and whacked on the ass, and we scream. And it's a whole brand new world. So the fear starts right then. Everything you can think of, your own death, death of a loved one, your own disfigurement, loss of identity, it's the same in every culture. Human beings are all afraid of the same basic things. It's an ancient fear. And so that's the stream that we're paddling down as horror writers and directors. So it's finding the right context for that fear. And it's not, there are two forms in cinema that I think are the most challenging, comedy and horror, because they're both timing related. So it's the timing on both of those. But you make a great horror film and you've really done something. There are a lot of talented guys working now, a whole new generation. So I can sit back, pop myself a beer, and applaud them. They're doing great.
And I asked Romero what films he had seen that had an effect on him, and he mentioned Assault on Precinct 13. And actually, the gang members are almost like zombies in some of the shots. Were you inspired by Night of the Living Dead?
They're like
You know, the way they're attacking?
I know.
And I know how the film had, like I said, Romero himself was blown away by it.
That's because he recognized his own work in there.